I still don't know exactly when things started feeling different with Coach Davis. Maybe it was that time after a meet when he clapped a hand on my shoulder and left it there just a little too long, or the way his eyes lingered when I peeled off my hoodie in the weight room. But I didn't think much of it then. He was always hands-on, always watching. That was part of being on the wrestling team. But that Thursday night, that's the one that stuck. It was late. The gym lights were humming low and yellow. The rest of the team already showered and gone. I had stayed behind, doing extra drills on the mat because I was coming off a rough loss the weekend before. Coach always said the mat tells the truth. No hiding, no excuses. I'd just finished stretching when he stepped into the doorway of the locker room. "Hold up, Miller. Got a second?" I looked up from tying my sneakers. "Yeah, sure." He was wearing his usual black windbreaker and track pants, sleeves pushed up, veins visible down his forearms. He had that serious look he wore like a second skin, like he was always about to bench someone or make them run suicides until they threw up. I followed him back out into the gym. My thighs were sore, hoodie sticking to my back with sweat. He walked to the side exit near the coach's office and reached for the door. That's when I heard it. Click. The lock turned with that hollow sound that echoes when everything else is quiet. I blinked. Did you just lock the door?" He didn't look at me right away, just turned slowly, his hand still on the handle. "Yeah," he said, calm as anything. "Don't want anybody walking in." I laughed a little, confused. "Why? You planning on kicking my ass?" Coach smirked. "Something like that." My stomach tightened, not in a scared way exactly, but not relaxed either. He walked over to the center of the mat and pointed. "Take off your shoes." "What?" "You heard me." I hesitated, then kicked them off. He did the same. We stood across from each other, bare feet on the mat, just like we did before every drill. "I watched your last 2 matches," he said. "You keep folding your left knee in on takedowns. You're telegraphing your moves." I nodded, still unsure where this was going. "And you've been tense, like you're holding back." I rubbed the back of my neck. "Been stressed. School, work, stuff at home." He didn't blink. "Not what I meant." He took a step closer. We were less than arm's length now. "You know how long I've been coaching you?" 2 years. You're one of the hardest working guys I've had in here. But you're hiding something." I looked away. "Coach, don't bullshit me, Miller." He said it quiet, firm, but not angry. "You think I don't see it?" he added. "The way you go stiff when I spot you, the way you flinch when I adjust your form." I felt my chest tighten, heat crawling up my neck. "I'm not flinching," I said, but even I didn't believe it. He stepped closer. "You think I don't know when someone's holding back? I've been around enough young guys to see it." "You're not scared of the mat. You're scared of yourself," I swallowed. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. Coach didn't move, just looked at me, like he was waiting for me to say something. And I didn't. I couldn't. My mind was racing, but my body stayed frozen. Then he reached out and tapped my chest lightly. "You want to get better?" he asked. "You want to stop fighting yourself?" I nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "Then let's get real. Right now." And then he stepped even closer, our chests almost touching. He didn't say anything else, just waited. I stood there, heart hammering in my chest, barely able to meet his eyes. We were so close I could smell the faint trace of his deodorant mixed with sweat. Clean, sharp, familiar. My instincts were tangled. Part of me wanted to take a step back. The other part? That part had been buried deep for a long time, and it wasn't flinching anymore. Coach didn't move. "I'm not going to do anything you don't want," he said, low and even. "But you're going to have to be honest with yourself." The silence between us stretched. I felt naked, even though I was fully dressed. My hoodie suddenly felt too warm, clinging to my skin in the worst way. "I don't know what you mean," I muttered, but it came out weak. Even I could hear it. He didn't call me out, just stepped back a few inches and nodded toward the mat. "Then show me." I stared at him. "Wrestle me," he said simply. What? You heard me. Go full out. Don't hold back. You're not a kid anymore, Miller. Let's see what you've really got. The challenge caught me off guard, and maybe that was the point. I hesitated only a second before peeling off my hoodie. My shirt underneath was damp with sweat. He stripped off his windbreaker too, revealing that tight compression shirt that never quite hid how solid he was underneath. We squared up. At first, I thought it was just another drill. But then he came at me fast, grabbing for my shoulder, testing my balance. I reacted on instinct, ducked under, tried to sweep his leg. He countered quickly, forcing me off my rhythm. "You're hesitating again," he said. I gritted my teeth and surged forward, managing to break his grip and get behind him. But he twisted free and spun, taking me down hard enough that the mat thudded beneath us. We paused there, me pinned underneath him, both of us breathing hard. His face hovered just above mine. "That hesitation," he said again, quieter now. "It's not about wrestling." His eyes searched mine. "You feel it too, don't you?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat was dry, my pulse hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. Coach's hand, still gripping my wrist from the takedown, loosened. His other hand slid to the side of my head. Not forcefully, just a simple touch, fingers brushing behind my ear. I didn't move. "You've been looking at me," he said, "since last semester. I see the way you flinch when I get close, like you want something, but you're scared to let it out." I swallowed hard. My voice came out cracked. "I didn't think you." He leaned in, close enough that his breath hit my cheek. "You think I don't notice when someone looks at me like that? You think I haven't been doing the same?" For a second, I thought time had stopped. Then he let go of my wrist, pushed himself back onto his knees, and sat there on the mat, his expression unreadable. "I locked the door," he said, "because I didn't want you to have an excuse to run." I sat up slowly, not trusting my voice. Coach looked me dead in the eye. "So I'm asking, you want to leave, walk out, pretend none of this happened? You can." He motioned to the door. "But if you stay, we're not going to pretend anymore." I didn't move. Not right away. We sat there on the mat, both of us quiet, the overhead lights buzzing faintly above. The air in the gym had gone still, heavy with something that felt just shy of electric. Coach was giving me an out. The door was locked, yeah, but he wasn't holding me here. He was just waiting, and that was the hardest part. Because I knew in that moment, every glance, every comment, every strange, tension-filled practice, that this wasn't in my head. It hadn't been for a long time. I took a breath and stood up slowly. Coach stayed on the mat, looking up at me, calm but alert. "I'm not leaving," I said finally. Something shifted in his face. A flicker of relief, maybe, or acceptance. But he didn't move. "Okay," he said simply. I sat down again, this time closer, not touching, but no longer keeping that careful distance. "I don't know what this is," I admitted, voice quieter. "But I've been thinking about it. About you, for a while." Coach nodded once. "Same." That was it. No dramatic confessions, no sweeping declarations, just two guys, finally dropping the bullshit. He looked at me for a long second, then slowly reached out, not touching me yet, just giving me the choice. And I didn't flinch this time. When his hand landed on the side of my neck, it was warm and grounding. His thumb traced just under my jawline, like he was still waiting for me to pull back. But I didn't. I leaned into it, and then his lips were on mine. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't aggressive. It was careful, restrained, like we both knew how delicate this moment was. My hands landed on his waist almost automatically, unsure of what they were doing but needing something to hold on to. He smelled like soap and sweat and something that made my chest feel tight. When we broke apart, he didn't move away. He just rested his forehead against mine, his breath shallow. "You good?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. "I wasn't sure if you'd," he started, then stopped himself. I wasn't either, I said. He pulled back enough to see my face. We don't have to rush this. I know, I said. But I didn't move. Neither did he. A beat passed. I keep my distance for a reason, he murmured. I can't cross that line unless I'm damn sure. Are you? His jaw tensed, like he was fighting the urge to say too much. Then he reached up and ran his fingers through his own short hair, sighing. I wasn't. Not until now. I sat back slightly, trying to steady my breathing. I'd never seen Coach like this, unguarded, uncertain, and for some reason, that made him feel more real to me than ever. I've had thoughts, I admitted, eyes fixed on the floor, stuff I didn't know what to do with. Yeah? He asked softly. Yeah. And when I'm around you, I trailed off. Same, he said. We looked at each other again, no words needed. There was nothing else to explain, no more pretending. Come here, he said, pulling me gently toward him. This time, I didn't hesitate. Coach's hand stayed on my back as I leaned into him. Not pushing, not guiding, just there, solid, steady. The kind of touch that made it impossible to pretend this wasn't happening. I could feel the way his chest rose and fell against mine, the heat radiating off him. His other hand slid along my arm, slow, careful, like he was still trying to memorize what it felt like to touch me without worrying who might be watching. Have you ever, he began, then paused. I shook my head. No, not like this. He exhaled through his nose, like that answer meant more to him than he let on. Me either, not with anyone who mattered. We stayed like that for a minute, knees brushing, arms loose around each other, and it was weirdly calm. I didn't feel that panicked rush I always imagined I would in a moment like this. I just felt seen. Like he knew exactly who I was without me needing to explain it. Eventually, he pulled back slightly and looked at me. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to be honest, I nodded. You feel like I've pressured you into this? Even a little? The question caught me off guard, but I appreciated it, really appreciated it. No, I said. You didn't. I stayed because I wanted to. He searched my face, making sure I meant it. When he saw I did, something in him relaxed. He smiled, small, subtle, but real. Okay, he said, and stood up. He reached a hand down to help me to my feet. I took it. He didn't let go right away. You hungry? He asked, breaking the tension just enough to let us breathe. I laughed. Kinda starving, actually. There's leftover pasta in the office fridge, he said. Come eat. We walked together off the mat, barefoot and sweaty, like none of this was strange. Like we hadn't just crossed a line that neither of us thought we ever would. In his office, he handed me a plastic container and a fork. I sat on the edge of the old couch while he leaned against the desk, watching me eat like he was still trying to figure out if this was real. I don't do things like this, he said almost to himself. Me neither. But this doesn't feel wrong, does it? I shook my head. Coach looked down at his hands for a moment, then back up at me. It's gonna be complicated. I know. I don't want to be just some story you tell your friends in 5 years. You're not, I said, and meant it. He nodded. All right, then let's take this one day at a time. I didn't say anything, just kept eating. But inside, everything felt different. In a good way, like I'd finally let myself be honest about something I didn't have the words for until tonight. As we cleaned up and got ready to leave, Coach unlocked the door and looked at me before flipping off the lights. You're not alone in this, he said quietly. Okay? Okay. We stepped out into the hallway, the echo of our steps the only sound. When we reached the parking lot, he paused at his car. I'll see you at practice, he said. You sure nothing's gonna be weird now? His mouth quirked. It was already weird. Now it's just honest. The next morning felt surreal. I woke up with that weird weight in my chest. Not anxiety, exactly, but the kind of heaviness that comes when something changes, and you know there's no undoing it. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, the memory of Coach's hand on my neck, the way he said, "You're not alone in this," echoing over and over in my head. I didn't know what this was, or what came next. At practice, it was back to business. Whistle in his mouth, Clipboard in hand, Coach was his usual self. Sharp, focused, demanding. If anyone noticed anything different between us, they didn't say a word. I kept my eyes on the mat, my moves tight and clean, every instinct telling me to just play it cool. But he watched me. Not more than usual, just differently. And I watched him back. After practice, he didn't ask me to stay. He didn't even look my way as I packed up. And that stung more than I expected. Maybe I thought it would be different now. More open somehow. I grabbed my bag, trying not to let it get to me. But as I headed for the locker room, I heard him call my name. Miller. I turned. He was standing by the equipment room door, arms crossed, eyes steady. Come help me move some pads. I followed him without a word. The second the door shut behind us, he leaned against the shelf and exhaled. Didn't want to make it a thing in front of the others, he said. I nodded. Yeah, I get it. There was a beat of silence. Then he stepped closer and looked at me. That unreadable look he wore when he was about to make a call that mattered. This doesn't have to go anywhere, he said. Not if you're unsure. We can let it go. I met his eyes. Is that what you want? He didn't answer right away. Then he shook his head. No, but I had to say it. I stepped closer. I don't want to let it go. The air between us changed again. Quieter, warmer. His jaw tensed like he was trying not to react too fast. And I could tell he was still figuring out how to do this. How to be this version of himself with someone who saw him more than just as a coach. I'm not gonna lie to you, he said. This could get messy. Everything real is messy, I said, not even sure where that came from. He smiled. That small, rare smile I'd only seen once or twice in all the time I'd known him. You really want to try this? I do. He reached out and lightly touched the hem of my sleeve, like that was as far as he could let it go in this space. All right then, we didn't kiss, didn't do anything risky. We just stood there, close enough to feel the pull, the understanding. It was better that way, slower. It made it feel real. And just before we left the room, he said, there's a diner 2 towns over. No one from here goes there. Meet me Friday night? I nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. We slipped out separately, careful not to draw attention. But for the rest of the day, I carried that moment with me like a secret flame. Something new, something just for us. By the time Friday rolled around, I couldn't sit still. I must have changed shirts 3 times before leaving my apartment, checking myself in the mirror like I wasn't just going to meet my coach at a diner outside of town. But it didn't feel small. It felt huge. Bigger than any meet or final or late night training session I'd ever been through. I pulled into the diner's parking lot just past 7. It was quiet, a little rundown, the kind of place with cracked pavement and flickering neon signs. Coach's truck was already there. Inside, he was sitting in a booth near the back, one arm resting on the table, the other nursing a cup of coffee. He looked up when I walked in and gave me a nod, not a smile, not anything big, just a simple acknowledgement that somehow felt intimate as hell. Hey, I said as I slid into the booth across from him. Glad you came. Wasn't sure if I'd chicken out, I admitted. He chuckled. Same. That surprised me. The idea that he, of all people, might have had doubts. He always seemed so in control, so sure of himself, but tonight, his shoulders looked less square, his voice a little less sharp. The waitress came by, took our order without a second glance, and disappeared. For a while, we just talked. About nothing. About everything. About practice. And how Coach once accidentally broke a kid's nose during a drill. About my major and how I didn't even know if I wanted to stick with it. About the small town crap we both hated. It felt weirdly easy, like we'd both needed this space to breathe without being who we were at the gym. Just 2 guys in a booth, talking. When the food came, we dug in. But that tension, that quiet awareness, it never fully left. And eventually, he set his fork down and looked at me. You told anyone? He asked. I shook my head. Not even close. Good. That hung there for a second. Not as a threat, more like a boundary. One I understood, one I respected. "You ever told anyone?" I asked. Coach didn't answer right away. Then he took a sip of coffee and stared out the window. "Years ago. College teammate. It didn't end well." I nodded slowly. "You think this will?" He met my eyes. "I think I'm willing to find out." I smiled. "For real this time." After we paid and walked out to our cars, the night air was cooler, the street mostly empty. We stood there for a second beside his truck, the quiet stretching long between us. And then, before I could think too much, I stepped in and kissed him. Just once. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make it clear that, yeah, this was real, that I wasn't going anywhere. When we pulled back, he looked at me like he was still trying to believe it. "See you Monday?" he asked, voice low. "Count on it." I watched him drive off first, taillights disappearing into the dark. Then I got in my car and just sat there for a minute, replaying it all. Whatever this was, it had started. And I wasn't scared of it anymore. Monday came, and everything felt the same, but also not. Practice ran like usual. Whistles, drills, yelling. Sweat dripping onto the mat. Coach barked out instructions with the same clipped tone he always had, and no one would have guessed that 2 nights ago we were sitting across from each other in a booth, sharing fries and secrets. But I felt it every time he walked by, every time his hand brushed my back while adjusting a stance or repositioning my hips during a takedown drill. Nothing inappropriate, nothing obvious, but it was there, like a buzz under my skin. Afterward, I stayed late to help clean up, just like always, and when the others cleared out, it was just us again. I was folding up the last mat when I felt him behind me. "Good work today," he said, voice lower now, more relaxed. "Thanks." He paused. "You busy after this?" I shook my head. "No." He nodded toward the side exit. "Come on." We didn't go far, just to his office. The door shut quietly behind us, and he leaned against the desk while I hovered near the lockers, unsure of what came next. "I've been thinking," he said finally. "Yeah? I know this is risky," he started. "Hell, it's probably stupid, but I don't want this to just be a thing we do in parking lots and dark corners." My heart kicked up. "Then, what do you want?" He didn't answer right away, just stepped forward, closed the space between us, and put a hand gently on my chest. "I want to be able to talk to you, see you, without pretending none of it matters." That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was dramatic, but because it wasn't. It was simple, honest. "I want that too," I said. He let his hand fall, but stayed close. "There's still a lot we have to figure out." "I know. People talk. They assume. I don't care." He raised an eyebrow. "You will," I smiled. "Probably, but not right now." He laughed, just once, but it was real. And then he leaned in and kissed me again, slower this time, not rushed, like we had all the time in the world, and when we broke apart he didn't move back, just rested his forehead against mine. "You're not just some hookup to me," he said quietly. "I need you to know that." "I know," I whispered. He pulled away, nodding like he needed to get his own emotions under control. "All right, you should get going before someone notices." "Yeah," I said, though I didn't want to move. But I did, and as I opened the door, he added, "Text me later, if you want." I paused, looked back at him. "I will." I walked out into the hallway, heart pounding, head spinning. I didn't know what we were, or where this would go, but I knew it was real. And for now, that was enough. The days after that first night at the diner felt surreal. I kept replaying everything in my head, the way his hand lingered, the way he looked at me, the quiet intensity that seemed to follow him like a shadow. At practice, the team didn't notice, but I did. Every small gesture, every glance, every brush of skin felt loaded with meaning. By the end of the week, Coach Davis and I had settled into a rhythm. Not public, not dramatic, just ours, a secret tension that made every ordinary moment feel electric. A touch of the hand while adjusting a stance, a small smile across the mat when no one else was looking. Quiet moments in the office that left my chest tight and my thoughts spinning for hours afterward. Then came Friday evening. We met again at the diner, our little ritual. I arrived early, nerves on edge, wondering if I would overthink it all and act like an idiot. He was already there, sipping coffee, his eyes lifting to meet mine as I slid into the booth. No words were needed. The moment we sat down, everything felt normal and extraordinary at the same time. We talked, laughed, teased, and eventually, silence fell. Comfortable, heavy, intimate. He reached out, and I didn't hesitate this time. Our hands met across the table, fingers entwined. The warmth from his touch made the butterflies in my stomach scream. "Ready to stop pretending?" he asked quietly, leaning just slightly closer. "I think I already stopped," I whispered. He smiled. Not a big smile, just a small one that made something inside me flip. Then he leaned in and kissed me, and I didn't pull away. Not for a second. The rest of the diner melted away. The clinking of dishes, the hum of the neon sign outside, the occasional passerby, all of it faded into background noise as we existed only in that small booth, in that stolen world where everything else could wait. When we finally pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine, breathing slow and steady. "We'll figure it out," he murmured, step by step. "I know," I said, and I meant it. That night, walking back to my car, I felt lighter, freer than I had in months. The fear of what could go wrong didn't vanish, but it didn't matter, because for the first time, I knew I wasn't alone in feeling this. And whatever came next, awkward, messy, complicated, or perfect, I was ready to face it with him. And I couldn't stop smiling,